The woman in this photo is Barbara Bakeland, a model from the 1960s who slept with her own son in order to turn him straight. When Tony revealed to his parents that he was gay, it didn't exactly align with their morals, so Barbara went out and hired several prostitutes to be with her son. However, this obviously didn't work, so Barbara took it upon herself, saying to her sister, "You know, I could get Tony over his homosexuality if I just took him to bed." Well, she did, and a few years later in 1972, he snapped. Tony stabbed his mother in the heart, killing her instantly, and was sent to a psychiatric hospital to receive therapy. There, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and just a few days after his release, he murdered his grandmother and was taken into custody. But on the day of his prison sentence, Tony Bakeland was found dead in his prison cell, having taken his own life with a plastic bag.
This is Twisty the Clown. He's a disgraced clown that will stop at seemingly nothing in order to regain his position as a kids' entertainer. Twisty joined Rusty Westchester's travelling carnival in 1943 and became one of the most popular acts. The other carnival acts, jealous at Twisty's popularity, started spreading rumours that he was a child molester. That rumour ruined his career and Twisty struggled to find any more clown work. A few years later, he returned home to find out his mother had passed away. Stricken with grief, Twisty blew off his lower jaw with a shotgun in an attempted suicide. He then started wearing a terrifying prosthetic face mask warped into a permanent smile. He then turned into a kidnapper and serial killer, as he attempted to, in his mind, keep children safe from their parents. Shockingly, a series of comic books were published based on the killings of Twisty in the 1950s. It was called Twisty, the Clown Chronicles.
This guy unalived his roommate over a damaged microwave. I've always heard that people do crazy things during the holidays, and this case proves it to be true. Hi, my name is Ethan, and trigger warning, this is a dark case. Arizona police were called to a home in Golden Valley on December 14th where people allegedly heard shooting. When officers arrived at the scene, they discovered 73-year-old Robert Honeshell Jr. and his deceased roommate, who I will not be naming just to give respect to the family. Detectives learned that Robert was involved in this unaliving, as him and his roommate had gone into an argument the day prior. And then when his roommate went to sleep, that is where he took the opportunity to shoot him. And like I said at the beginning, the argument was over a damaged microwave. Being that the case is so new, he has not received any charges just because they're all up in the air, but if I had to guess, he'll probably receive at least first-degree murder.
This case's twist will shock you. On the evening of 2014, Sarah Sands had downed 2 bottles of wine, put on a hoodie, and left her apartment carrying a knife. She then walked to a 77-year-old man's house named Michael Plested and took his life. She then walked back to her house and gave herself up to the police. But why did she do it? Turns out that man's name wasn't Michael Plested. He had legally changed it through a secret loophole in the law, which allows you to do so when applying for a new passport, because he was actually on the SO list for messing with children. And it turns out he had lured her 3 sons into his apartment, 12-year-old Bradley and the 11-year-old twins Alfie and Reese, and essayed them. In court, Sarah claimed that she will never be able to take the nightmares that happen to her boys away from them when they're screaming at night. She got 7.5 years, and now that she's out, she fights the law, campaigning to stop other offenders from changing their name through that same loophole. Did you see the secret question I hid in this video?
What are some of the craziest things people have confessed to at the end of their lives? In this series, I'm sharing some of the craziest ones I found. And I cover all sorts of spooky and true crime stuff, so follow along. So in 2004, Geraldine Kelly was dying of cancer. Her daughter was there by her side, but this was particularly hard on her daughter, because her father, Geraldine's husband, had passed away in a motor vehicle accident years prior. Or at least that's what Geraldine had told everyone. A few days before Geraldine passed away, she tells her daughter that she lied about how her husband died. He didn't die in an accident. Geraldine had killed him. And not only that, but she was keeping his body in a freezer in a storage unit. So her daughter calls the police right away, and sure enough, he's in an unplugged freezer that was taped shut. Geraldine claimed that she had been a victim of abuse, but she passed away a few days later, along with any information she had on this case.
Photos with disturbing backstories.
you doing? What you see? What? Lucy? Who are you saying hi to? Who are you saying hi to? Dude, you need to stop that. You're freaking me out. Come on.
This video shows 10-year-old Cody Martin reacting to a prank for his parents' YouTube channel, Daddy of 5. Mike and Heather Martin started the channel in 2015 with the goal of showing the world that their life was a movie and, of course, having fun. And during their early years, the pranks were fairly harmless, but as views and money started rolling in, the videos got more and more intense. But one video in particular would lead to the channel's demise. The invisible ink prank targeted their son Cody, who was known on the channel to have large reactions due to his diagnosis of ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. It seems innocent enough, but then things go overboard.
Why did you do that? It's just a prank, bruh.
But viewers didn't see it as just a prank, bruh, and Mike and Heather received severe backlash, causing them to come out with, you guessed it, an apology video. However, this was not enough, because soon after people reported the parents to the police, the channel was terminated from YouTube, and Mike and Heather were sentenced to 5 years on probation for 2 counts of child neglect.
This is the Slenderman. He's a supernatural being who preys on children. The most famous story about the Slenderman concerns a girl named Lindsay. After waking up at midnight one evening, she went to make herself a cup of coffee. A cold chill went up her spine as she walked past her front door, but it was locked, exactly how she'd left it. Unable to resist, Lindsay took a look through the peephole. She saw nothing but darkness, which is to be expected in the middle of the night. That all changed when she blinked and saw a shape in the distance. It looked crudely human, but it had long limbs, with bulky joints branching off into several arms. It was dressed in a black suit, and its face, if you could even call it that, was completely featureless. Whilst running back to her room, she slipped on some coffee and watched in horror as the door's deadbolt unlocked. Nicole, Lindsay's sister, visited her soon after at the hospital. Lindsay had a bandage wrapped round her head, covering both her ears as well as her eyes. She also had several burns on her skin. As Nicole entered the room, she spotted the silhouette of a man in the window, but the room was on the 3rd floor.
On the morning of November 29th, Christine Young suddenly woke up out of a deep sleep feeling a cold sensation come over her. It was exactly 5:45 a.m. and she noticed that her arms and legs were starting to go numb. She thought it was strange but brushed it off in the moment, not knowing what it could have meant. After all, she needed to get some sleep so she could wake up to meet with her daughter later in the morning like they had planned for a while now. But when Christine's daughter Ashley didn't show up for their arranged meeting, she began to worry. She started frantically calling Ashley's phone but got no response. So she called each one of Ashley's friends to see if they had any idea where she was. This is when she learned that her daughter Ashley had plans to meet up with 30-year-old Jared Chance and hadn't been seen since leaving a local bar with him. A few days later, police receive a disturbing phone call from a concerned neighbor in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This neighbor explains that he's just stumbled upon a tarp with a stream of blood leaking from it. When police arrive, they find that the tarp is wrapped around a human torso. The owner of that apartment? Jared Chance. The DNA of the torso is tested and it comes back that it is human and that it does belong to Ashley Young. Ashley's arms and legs were later found in a box in Jared's apartment. That's when Ashley's mom, Christine, recalls the incident from a few days prior. She believes that at the time she woke up at exactly 5:45 in the morning was the time of her daughter Ashley's death. Unfortunately, Ashley's head has still never been located. Have you ever wondered how accurate police sketches are? I'm going to show you a police sketch from the Alec Murdaugh case and we're going to see. And I cover all sorts of spooky and true crime stuff on this page, so follow along. This is a sketch of the man that Alec Murdaugh claims shot him on September 4th, 2021. And for those that don't know, Alec Murdaugh is on trial right now for the summer 2021 slaying of his wife and son. Alec claimed that he wasn't home at the time that his wife and child were murdered, but a Snapchat taken by his son just 5 minutes before his death proved that Alec was at the scene of the crime. And just a few months after the murders, Alec said that he had pulled his car over on the side of the road when this man pulled up and shot him. But this man doesn't exist. Alec completely fabricated the description of the man for police. Alec was actually shot, but what happened was he hired this man to do it. And the reasoning behind it is wild. Alec claimed that he couldn't handle the loss of his wife and son, so he hired this man to take his life. And that way too, if he lost his life, his other son would get the $10 million life insurance policy on him. But Alec had been writing that man checks for small amounts for the months leading up to the event. That man was a handyman on the Murdaugh property, but what Alec was trying to do, it's believed, was make him look like he was Alec's drug dealer. And that way, if he shot Alec, it would also look like that was the man that shot his wife and son. So we'll never know how accurate the police sketch is because this man is not real. But if you're following the case, what do you think?
Fresh is about a guy who holds women captive so he can sell their meat on the black market. But did you know that something similar actually happened in real life? And it's actually so much scarier. In Ibadan, Nigeria, a motorcycle taxi driver went missing. His fellow taxi drivers went to the police, but they weren't concerned about his disappearance. On March 22, 2014, he called his coworkers from a cell phone he smuggled in. He was scared out of his mind, but managed to describe the place that he and a bunch of other people were trapped in the forest. His friends decided to go looking for him, and what they found can only be described as a body farm. There were bodies everywhere, alive and not. Some bodies were missing limbs, and then some limbs were missing bodies. One woman even said that she was pregnant when she got abducted, but she gave birth while at the facility, and they took the baby and she never saw it again. It's suspected that the victims at this body farm were being used for the black market, and many local news outlets speculated that they were going to be used for rituals. And as if that wasn't scary enough, this is technically unsolved. When the farm was raided, none of the operators were there and the investigation didn't make much progress. And something about the Nigerian police being unbothered at the taxi driver's disappearance just seems fishy to me. But in 2021, Oyo State authorities arrested a suspected human body parts merchant. 40-year-old Mutu Abdul Rashid was caught with freshly cut hands from an unknown person and other body parts. It seems like he's part of a gang that takes body parts from people to be sold to affluent individuals to be used for ritualistic purposes. And it seems like he was one of the people who was doing the dirty work when it came to buying and selling human body parts. And to speak more about the hold that this organization has, the leader of the squad that arrested them said that he's facing tremendous pressure to release this man. I don't know about you guys, but this stuff is scarier than any horror movie.
A married couple called Jock and Kath were excited to be leaving Skegness in Lincolnshire and heading on an adventure to Ireland for a holiday to remember. Jock was a 61-year-old businessman and his wife worked alongside her husband as they ran a packaging factory together. The couple arrived at their destination and spent some time enjoying the sights. And as night fell, they decided to park nearby a hotel where they would settle down to catch some sleep for the night. A few hours had passed when Kath stood out of her sleep upon hearing a gentle knock on the door of the camper van. Dressed in a satin nightie, she felt the sudden urge to cover herself with a fleece when the knocks became louder and more aggressive. It was then that the couple knew something was wrong. "Who is it?" Jock yelled through the door. "It's the border police. You must move your vehicle now," was the response. However, the couple knew this was probably a lie. Kath grabbed her mobile phone from the side and swiveled the ring on her hand so the diamonds were hidden. Now full of fear, it was only moments later when the door of the van would be broken into and the couple would be met with men holding weapons. Suddenly, they would race towards them. After the attack, the couple were thrown from their vehicle. Trembling with fear, they watched the men drive away in their camper van before disappearing into the distance. Injured and in pain, they tried to catch the attention of two lorries passing by, but the drivers drove past. But after managing to find their phone amongst the chaos and confusion, they would call the police, who were shocked to find the couple in such a state. 2 men would be caught, but this was an experience that would change the couple's lives forever. Here is a real picture of them after the attack.
Did you know that American Horror Story actually includes a lot of true crime? I'm True Crime Caitlin, and these are 5 real-life true crimes that are included within the American Horror Story series. In Season 1, the character of Tate Langdon mirrors the Columbine shooters, more specifically Dylan Klebold. In the series, while Tate is carrying out his mass shooting, he asks one of the students if she believes in God before killing her. And this is something that was actually said by the Columbine shooters. In season 3, the Axeman is based off a real-life serial killer who to this day is still unidentified. Exactly like within the series, the real-life Axeman warned that he would kill again, but that he would spare any houses that played jazz music. Like his name suggests, he would break into houses, murder and disfigure his victims using an axe. In season 5, Lady Gaga's The Countess is based off Elizabeth Bathory, who through the 16th and 17th century murdered hundreds of girls and bathed in their blood to try and maintain her youth. Legend has it that she was a vampire. In season 11, it is likely that Mr. Whiteley is based off Richard Rogers, who was a gay serial killer working as a nurse. He murdered and dismembered at least 2 gay men, often going to scope out his victims from piano bars in Manhattan, New York. Just like in the series, Robert drugged and then dumped one of his victims, just like Mr. Whiteley done to Gino. In season 2, Dr. Arden is based off of Joseph Mengele, who was a physician at Auschwitz. They both performed disgusting and deadly experiments. What we saw from Dr. Arden in the series was horrible, but it was nothing compared to what this monster done in real life. And that is only a few. Comment down below if you would like a part 2.